Hello, I am Bentham, and this is... I've forgotten it again. The brains coming back. I'm so bad at this. I am Bentham. I know that. And this is Let's Lag Kerbal Space Program, Episode 2. There we go. Got it in the end. Okay, I'm going to be quick with this. What we're going to do, we're going to develop our badger design. Ignore that. It's okay. Yeah, you didn't see that. Yeah, this is the Badger 1. I have definitely not already built the Badger 2 out of it. I am now going to build the Badger 2 out of the Badger 1. So, well, yeah. I forgot to mention. Because I was very happy with the way this, the first episode of the Kerbal Space Program thing, where it came out. So I did another one. So yeah, here we are. And because we're going to be in space, well, we're going to be in the mission, hopefully, quite a bit longer than last time. I'm going to be quick with this. So here's the rocket. You got all the stuff that you had before. If you don't know what it is, then just go back and watch it. First of all, get rid of these. This bit is going to be in space, so what we want is RCS thrusters. So let's stick the symmetry on. I'm going to do 3, and you'll see why in a minute. Put some at the top, and there, and some at the bottom to help us maneuver in space. That looks nice. What was I going to say? I don't know what I was going to say. Let's just carry on. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to put a decoupler on this section. So this will be the space section. This will be re-entry. This will be the space bit. And then below will be the launch section. So the decoupler there. And then we're going to get a standard SAS module. And that's different in that it has its own power. It acts like an advanced SAS module. Except instead of using whatever is available, it uses its own kind of, I don't know, thing. It's got stuff inside, makes the ship move in the way that it wants to. Whereas the advanced SAS can't move on its own power, it has to use the other systems. So stick that there, and then we're going to go a bit bigger. This is a tricoupler. It doesn't act as a decoupler, it simply splits the column into 3. And if you stick the symmetry on, let's get a fuel tank. Stick that in. No, that's not a fuel tank, we don't want that. There we go, fuel tank, stick that on, you've got 3. And I'm going to do this 3 times. And at the bottom put 3 liquid fuel engines to use the fuel. Another thing, I remember what I was going to say, the RCS thrusters, I haven't put an RCS tank in. Just a sec. There, this is an RCS fuel tank, it powers RCS thrusters. The RCS thrusters can be anywhere on the ship, even in different stages, as long as there is an RCS fuel tank somewhere on the ship. It will fuel the RCS thrusters, unless they're on separate parts of the ship that aren't connected in any way. So we're going to need a bit of steering. So winglets, these will be steered by the advanced SAS unit on the upper stage. Put those on, put some at the top as well. And we'll use these strut connectors to reinforce here, because otherwise these 3 sections will just bend all over the place. This will just hold them all in place as a single unit of 3 rockets. It's awesome. So that looks, yeah, I think I've got everything covered there. There are a few, I've used most of the parts now, but so far I haven't used this. This is like a standard liquid fuel engine, but this liquid fuel engine doesn't burn quite as fast, doesn't use as much, doesn't use fuel quite as fast. So it's still got the same thrust from the same fuel, but you don't get as much at one time. But it has gimbaling, which means it can rotate on an axis and help to steer the ship, either using advanced SAS or you controlling it with WASD QE. And this is a solid fuel booster. It's like a liquid fuel rocket, but its fuel is solid. And when you light it, it will stay lit and you can't turn it off, which can be somewhat dangerous. But it also has a hell of a lot of thrust behind it. It lasts for 25 seconds, and that literally crappy. As I was saying, yeah, the solid fuel booster, it has it burns for 25 seconds and has a hell of a lot of thrust. I don't know if it has enough thrust as I can't talk today. Doesn't have as much thrust as the liquid fuel engines, but it's got a fuel tank stuck in it, so it's quite convenient. It's good when you need to boost somewhere, because it's a booster. So that's propulsion done. You've seen all this. Yeah, what have I got? Fuel ducts, they transfer fuel between fuel tanks, because fuel tanks, the fuel can only flow between connected ones or through fuel lines, so you use those to connect them all up and so on. And this is a radial decoupler. Basically, you stick them on the side of the rocket, you stick something on it, and it acts like a stack decoupler, but sideways. And this is like one of these winglets, but I think it's crapper. So yeah, I think I've covered everything there. Let me just check the staging. Okay, these 3 rockets will fire first on stage 4, then this entire section will decouple for stage 3. For stage 2, the space area rocket will fire, and for stage 1 that will decouple, and then for stage 0 the parachute deploys and it's all done. So let's call this the Badger 2 and save it. I think I'll save. Okay, and I will be back in a couple of seconds for you. I don't know how long for me, and we will fly this thing, and the video lag will be reset because I'm just going to do that as often as possible. There we go. That's your standard rocket for going into orbit and stuff. Excellent. So see you in a minute. Okay, I'm back and we're on the launch pad. For you it's been 3 seconds, for me it's been 2 days. In that time, some roadworks have started outside my house. I don't know if you can hear them. The fan may drown them out, in which case it's fine. So let's get straight on to launching this thing. I'm fairly sure I explained everything in the previous bit. So SAS on, we'll leave the RCS off, throttle up to full, and let's launch. Oh, that's a bit loud. I'm going to turn it down. Yeah, I don't know why it was on that higher volume. So there you go, we're going. Yeah, we're going. It's a rocket, yeah! Into space. Jebediah's loving it and the other 2 are terrified. They don't want to be astronauts. Jebediah forced them to. I think they're like Jebediah's kids or something. I don't know. Yeah, Kerman. I remember at the beginning of the first episode I couldn't remember what the names were. It's Kerman. I don't know why I didn't know that. Just a momentary lapse in memory, based on the fact that I'm making a video, and it's very hard to remember things when you're making videos because you're trying to think about all the other things you're doing. Have a look at the map. Africa. Apoapsis of 5,000. Just keep it going up. First fuel tank set is about to run out. There it goes. We're doing 150 meters per second. Bit slower than our first launch, but we got a hell of a lot more fuel available. And it's to be expected. Before we were just lifting something the size of this thing here. And now we're lifting something the size of this thing. Admittedly with 3 more engines, but it's still more weight per engine. It's a very important part of this game, mass per... what is it? No. Thrust in relation to mass. It affects how you accelerate and so on, in the atmosphere and in space. We've just left the first layer of atmosphere. We're doing 300 meters per second. Apoapsis is getting fairly high. What I'm going to do is, in the space business, I'm told it's called a gravity turn. So we switch off the SAS, tilt a little bit, and SAS back on. By the way, the point of this mission is to get into an orbit. I don't know if I mentioned that. There we go, the SAS is keeping us nice and steady on that slight tilt. That should widen our apoapsis, not our apoapsis, our orbit path earlier on, so we have more time to think when we get into space. I'm going to cut the engines. There we go. I'm going to cut the engines when the apoapsis is at 90,000. So X is the shortcut for that. So there we go. Right, I probably don't have much time to do this, so straight on with it. SAS off, turn, turn, turn. We need to be on the horizon. we've got the vertical height we need, or the height, or the verticalness, I don't know, I didn't say both words. So now we need to give ourselves more horizontal speed and turn this into an orbit. Essentially we need to be going fast enough so that when we fall and hit the ground is not there, so we miss it and go round and then carry on going round for all eternity. So let's see, our altitude, yeah, we've left the atmosphere just about, it's at 60 something 1,000 meters. There we go. Alright, I am going to throttle up. There we go. The speed we need for an orbit at, well, eventually will be at 100,000 meters. That's the standard low orbit. You can see this is going up. While we are behind the apoapsis will go up when we fire our rockets. So you can see our arc is getting wider and wider, and eventually it will get so wide it simply goes round the planets. That's how orbits work. Yay! It's so simple and yet it seems so complicated, and it is so complicated. I think our engine's just, yeah, we're out of fuel on that section. To the space section! And now we'll get tons of speed. Bye bye. That's going to fall back to the ground eventually. Now our orbit should widen a lot quicker. Yeah, so the when you're behind the apoapsis, firing the engines makes it move away from you. I don't want it to get too far, so I'm going to bring in the throttle. Wait till it gets nearer. Because if the apoapsis is miles away when you do a burn, then you get a really awkward orbit. I'm actually being helpful and providing advice here. It's very strange. A little bit nearer. We're currently going at 1,700 and variable meters per second. For an orbit we need about 2,200. You can have a lower one if you've got a really low orbit, but it's best to not have an orbit any lower than this, because you'll hit the atmosphere and then it'll decay and then you'll fall and possibly crash. So we want to keep the apoapsis near, but we mustn't let it go past us. And we're going to slowly apply the throttle. You see that's going up. While it's ahead of us it'll go up, but basically when you fire engines, where you are does not go up, because you are going sideways. So it just affects everywhere else in terms of how high the orbit is. So wherever you fire, it affects the opposite side of your orbit. So because I'm firing at the highest point, the lowest point is going to move out quickest. The apoapsis is also going to move ahead because we're just giving ourselves more momentum. Some people complain it's impossible to get into orbit, but I'm about to. And, well, they don't say it's impossible, they say they can't. I think what they do is they put too many stages on the rockets, because I've done that. And it doesn't turn out very well. I made this huge thing with about 9 stages, and I didn't even get it out of the atmosphere. Because it's a case of always making sure that you've got enough thrust to weight. That's the important thing. And if you have 3 engines on one stage and then there's like another 9 stages full of fuel and engines and all that, you're not going to get anywhere. This must be really boring for all you people who are just watching this because, like, I told you to, or because I also do Minecraft videos. And whoops, we're past the apoapsis. That was a massive failure. Luckily we could drag it back in because we're nearby. It's at 100, good height, and we're about to get the periapsis, which is the lowest point in an orbit. Here it comes, bing, and you can see that shooting up, whereas this isn't shooting up so fast. Then the apoapsis get a bit ahead, so that come back in. Adjust the course. Oh, a bit too responsive when it's so small. I haven't even used the RCS. A lot of times in a mission as simple as this, you don't even need to use the RCS because the command pod has an inbuilt kind of thing that helps control you, and I think there's various other factors too. Taking a while to get around here. I'm going to use the boost feature, or the time warp feature, just to speed things up. Get back into position. It's best not to use this if you're doing anything like firing engines or you're in the atmosphere, because what happens when you use the warp is it puts the simulation on rails. Basically carries on everything as it was before and ignores any new calculations. The Apple-Watch is shooting away. I don't care. Let's just go crazy. And that is a periapsis of not quite enough. Apple-Watch getting a bit high. Who cares? There we go. The entire orbit is now at 100,000 meters or more. I'm happy with that. I'm going to do an orbit and I'll bring you back in and equalize the video lag. And we'll re-enter. Happy days. Okay, see you in 3 seconds for you, 2 minutes for me.